Earlier on in my undergrad, I got to do my very first project about cannibalism. I was in my very first anthropology class, and I was super excited because it's a subject that I know a lot about. Now, for this project, we had to have a visual aspect. I had to make a presentation. So, in order to make this presentation, I tried to find some kind of cute little cartoon representation of cannibalism. Right, I thought it would be fun. Now, I don't really know what I expected here, but what I got was, seriously? What the Hey there, Anth enthusiasts! Welcome back to another week of Anth with Alex. This week I've got a delicious topic for you as we venture into the wonderful world of cannibalism. Now, cannibalism, as it is widely used, is a word that refers to the consumption of one's own species. In this video, I'll be using the word to refer to humans eating other humans, but rest assured that it is pretty common in other species as well. Now, cannibalism is one of those things like drugs and murder that's become popular in media for its taboo nature. It features prominently in recent media such as NBC's Hannibal, Showtime's Yellow Jackets, and Amazon Prime's Has Been Hotel. All three shows have the common trait of featuring a main character who is themselves a cannibal. Cannibalism is also explored as a theme in the recent and controversial adaptation of the story of the serial killer Jeffrey Dahmer in Netflix's show Dahmer. But cannibalism isn't a new fad or fantasy story. Real people eat and have eaten real people throughout time and space. You may have heard of the Donner Party, the tragic story of Western settlers trapped in the snow of the Sierra Nevada mountains and forced to eat their dead to survive. Or maybe you've heard of the Siege of Suiyang, a military invasion during the Tang Dynasty in China that ended in the military eating an estimated half of the city's population. These are both historic examples, as well as examples of what's called subsistence or survival cannibalism. This is one of a few types of cannibalism, although we'll only really be talking about two here. In subsistence cannibalism, humans consume other humans for nutritious purposes, usually as a last resort when there are no alternatives. Most people nowadays find this variety of cannibalism to be acceptable. I mean, it. Survival is even an affirmative defense for cannibalism in Idaho, the only state in the United States with a law against the consumption of human flesh. I think when people think about cannibalism, this is often the way that people think about it. Just humans eating other humans the same way we would eat any other animal. But why else might someone engage in cannibalism? Well, there's also a kind of cannibalism called cultural or ritual cannibalism. This is a kind of cannibalism where, rather than for nutrition, human flesh is consumed for ritual purposes or cultural reasons. Ritual cannibalism usually takes two forms: endocannibalism or exocannibalism. Endocannibalism is the consumption of members of one's own group or culture. Often this tends to be for funerary practices. It's an emotional thing, to consume the being of another, to carry them with you. This type of cannibalism has been found in various places like Peru, Papua New Guinea, and in the Amazon. Exocannibalism is the act of consuming individuals of an outside group or culture. Often this takes the form of victory cannibalism, for one to show complete dominance over the other after warfare. It's some deep and heavy stuff. It can be an incredibly emotional experience, and it can play a huge role in the culture. So why are we talking about this? Why does this matter at all? Well, let's go back to that picture from the beginning. This is what you get when you try to find a cartoon depiction of cannibalism. Since it's a cartoon, some exaggerated proportions are to be expected, but this image is reminiscent of racist art of the American past. It depicts people of color as caveman-like people with fat lips and exaggerated hair. Once it's pointed out, it becomes painfully obvious just how racist it is, but this is still an image that you can find online as a stock image. It's not just in cartoons either. The image of the primitive cannibal tribe is one that's been historically prevalent. Even just the word cannibalism has racist origins in of itself. The word is derived from a Spanish word for a tribe that lived in the Caribbean, the Carib people, Caribales or Cannibales. And that dates all the way back to history's favorite explorer, Christopher Columbus, who spread the good word of God and warned of savage cannibals like the Carib people in the New World. The imagery of the barbarian cannibal tribes became a popular one of the time and was one of the many excuses to civilize and colonize the New World. This view of cannibalism as this thing that only the most savage or primitive of people do has persisted into the modern day with very little pushback on the subject in the wider public. Even in academic spaces, though, there's still a stigma about it. Take, for example, this article by Study Finds that it talks about the Magdalenian people, an ancient people who are well known for their cave paintings. In the article, it talks about how, though generally known for their sophisticated endeavors like cave art, they were also capable of extreme violence like cannibalism. The subject of the article at large is a cave in which the Magdalenian people were found to have engaged in subsistence cannibalism. The juxtaposition of these two ideas together is very clearly intended to insinuate that cannibalism is less sophisticated than the art pieces that these people are famous for creating. The article speaks as if violence and cannibalism haven't been a part of societies that we've considered sophisticated for generations. I mean, the Victorian English engaged in a practice of mummy eating because they believed that it had medicinal properties and they thought it was fun to open up mummies' caskets for parlor parties. If Victorian England isn't considered sophisticated, then I'm not really sure what is. So, where do we go from here? Well, it takes time to change our views of things as a society, especially when there's so much history built up around it that we don't even know where we came from unless it's pointed out. But some have been trying.
Yay!
In the larger anthropological community, efforts have been made by many to reframe the issue, to make special considerations for the history of the topic, and to avoid the ethnocentrism that people can be prone to. For example, more undergraduates are being educated about the topic in their anthropology classes. Like me, that's how I got here. Also, many anthropologists have often come to start using the term anthropophagy to refer to the consumption of human flesh rather than cannibalism, in recognition of the word's origins. Anthropophagy is pretty much the same thing. It is from Latin root words that would translate to eating human flesh. Although many cultures no longer practice ritual cannibalism due to colonial influences and societal shifts, anthropologists like Shirley Lindenbaum, Ron Barrett, and others have taken the time to collect oral histories from those that still remember the times when they did. Shirley Lindenbaum is well known for publishing on the subject of cannibalism and how it's been viewed historically, including in today. She was a medical anthropologist who went to Papua New Guinea to research a disease called kuru. While there, she discovered a population of people for which cannibalism was a ritual practice in recent memory, and she developed a hypothesis about the way that kuru spreads through the act of eating human flesh. Ron Barrett is a medical and cultural anthropologist who got to work with the Angori people of India. They're a sect of Hinduism that practices lots of things that are considered taboo, like eating human flesh and feces. I think by engaging with this subject on a casual level, we can better understand the way that we feel about cannibalism and where those feelings come from. Coming to an understanding and acceptance of cannibalism as an important thing to several cultures beyond just subsistence can bring us closer to a kinder world. There's no better way to do that than by learning it firsthand. From those for whom it is culturally relevant, of course. I am by no means encouraging you to eat people. Although it would be legal as long as you're not in Idaho. Anyways, thank you all for joining me this week to talk about one of my favorite subjects to talk about. I hope you had fun, I hope you learned something, and I hope to see you next time. Bye!